Hey everyone, welcome back to our Palace Papers Read Along series. Today we're covering Chapter 7, Jubilee Girl, and Chapter 8, Servant Problems. It's a roller coaster episode that captures the monarchy riding high with public celebrations and then getting dragged right back into scandal. The highs don't get more dazzling than the Golden Jubilee, and the lows? Well, it's the butler did it. Literally. Let's dive in. It was as if, confronted with the void of the Queen Mother's death, people thought, my goodness, we've got the Queen and she's been on the throne for 50 years and she's been doing this job quietly and getting on with it and never complaining. We've got something marvelous here that other countries don't have. A million people gathered in the mall to watch the festivities. 500 miles of cabling were laid in London so that the events could be broadcast around the globe. 20 scientists of the British Antarctic Survey held a party at a temperature of minus 20 degrees Celsius in the Antarctic. This was the reset the monarchy badly needed. The Queen had just lost her sister and mother, but the public chose to respond with pride, nostalgia, and full-on street parties. The timing was uncanny, but the moment felt earned. The Queen's quiet durability had become her superpower. One news outlet called it the best party in a backyard in the nation's history. Brian May delivered an edgy guitar solo of God Save the Queen. 3.5 hours of music deities followed, from Paul McCartney to Elton John, Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Aretha Franklin, Brian Wilson, Ricky Martin, Annie Lennox, Joe Cocker, and more. Ozzy Osbourne burst on stage screaming to the crowd, rock and roll, rock and roll. Party at the Palace was one of the most watched pop concerts in history, attracting around 200 million viewers internationally. 100,000 copies of the CD were sold within the first week of release. It made Queen Elizabeth II the first member of the royal family to be awarded a gold disc from the recording industry. The optics were wild, Buckingham Palace meets Black Sabbath. But it worked. For once, the Queen was cool. The monarchy leaned into spectacle, and it paid off. Pageantry met pop culture, and it made the institution feel strangely relevant again. Sitting in the third row with the rest of the royal family was Camilla Parker Bowles. She led the clapping as Phil Collins and Queen drummer Roger Taylor took to the stage to perform the Motown classic You Can't Hurry Love. It was clear that the heir to the throne had never looked happier. Smiling benignly at him for a change, his mother had given him the best augury of all that the monarchy had entered a new era. Camilla's quiet presence at the Jubilee wasn't a coincidence. It was choreography. The Queen didn't need to make an announcement. She let the seating chart do the talking. It was her way of saying, this is the future. Get used to it. The palace culture has always been instinctively cheap, gracious with manners, charming with thank you notes and little gifts, but mean when it comes to money. A possible explanation is that ever since the French Revolution, the royal family felt they might get marched upon by the populace at any moment and need portable property. The 20th century example of the Romanov family's catastrophic end sent a long-lasting shudder through their cousins at Buckingham Palace. The royal employment produced a kind of servile Stockholm syndrome. One of Prince Charles's show business friends said royal servants are like dressers in the theater. The uniform of deference before their masters combined with foul-mouthed camp in the wings. It usually ends with a warm gin and a bedsitter surrounded by signed photographs. While the Queen was basking in global admiration, the cracks downstairs were widening. This scene pulls back the curtain on the monarchy's complicated relationship with its staff, one of charm, control, and chronic underpayment. The Queen Mother's devoted steward William Tallon was a typical casualty. Outside the chapel at Lord Lichfield's memorial service in 2006, he moaned that when the old matriarch died and he was no longer needed, he was tossed out of his grace and favor apartment with only 3 months' notice. Admittedly, Tallon's alcohol-fueled orgies with frisky members of the staff had been getting out of hand, but there was no denying the heroic fact that for 5 decades he had been on duty at Clarence House or Birkhall or Royal Lodge or Castle of May from the moment the grand and not undemanding Queen Mother rose in the morning to the moment she went to bed at night. Tallon's less than graceful treatment by the palace was not unusual. David Griffin, Princess Margaret's trusted chauffeur of 26 years, was left disgruntled when his boss died. After years of lumping her around in the wheelchair, as he put it, He felt stitched up over his redundancy payment and bitter to be told to leave what had been his home. They didn't give a monkey's about the staff, Griffin concluded. There's a kind of tragedy here. The staff who devoted their lives, and often their personal happiness, to the royals found themselves discarded without ceremony. These weren't just servants, they were long-serving witnesses to history, now discarded and pretty soon forgotten. The arrest of Paul Burrell was a news bombshell. Until this moment, the public and the royal family had bought into the butler's self-promotion as Diana's rock, her closest confidant, defender, and go-between in the last troubled years of her life at Kensington Palace. Often photographed 2 steps behind the princess, he was the obsequious manservant who had supposedly displayed what the royal household values most: absolute discretion. It was Burrell who rushed to Paris after the car crash and tenderly dressed Diana's body in an evening dress provided by the British ambassador's wife. He was one of the small circle who attended Diana's interment on the private island at Althorpe. The Queen bestowed on him the Royal Victorian Medal. He was named a trustee for the Diana Memorial Fund and was given the job of sorting through her possessions. On January 18, 2001, Scotland Yard officers showed up at Burrell's Cheshire home in a dawn raid and asked a simple question: "Do you have any items from Kensington Palace in this house?" "No," Burrell replied. A search of the house exposed him immediately. It was a royal Amazon warehouse stuffed with paintings, photos, drawings, and china belonging to the Princess of Wales. The police discovered 2,000 negatives, including a photograph of Charles in the bath with his children, and many others showing the young princes naked. There was a trove of personal notes to and from William at school. Wow. This was the scandal that detonated everything. The man who once seemed like Diana's most loyal confidant was suddenly a suspect. And the amount of personal material he had was jaw-dropping. It included a huge cache of Diana's underwear, blouses, suits, dresses, and nightgowns. What had started as devotion now looked dangerously like some sick obsession. At 8:30 a.m. on day 11 of the trial, something remarkable happened. The trial of Paul Burrell was halted by an intervention from the Queen herself. Commander John Yates of Scotland Yard told Crown Prosecutor William Boyce that he had just had a conversation with Sir Michael Peat, who said, "Her Majesty has had a recollection." On the previous Friday, the Queen had by chance been driving past the Old Bailey with Prince Charles and Prince Philip. Noticing a crowd outside the courts, Her Majesty asked Charles about it. When all was explained to the best-informed monarch in the world, she recalled a meeting 5 years earlier, soon after Diana's death, when Burrell had sought an audience with her to explain that he was caring for some of Diana's papers. The nation's jaw dropped when this revelation became public. The issue of dishonorable intent was at the heart of the prosecution case against Burrell. Now the court would be told the Queen had known all about it in advance. The Guardian summarized that the Queen was the star non-witness in Regina Vorf Burrell. If she knew, then it wasn't theft. As usual, when it came to her family, the Queen had avoided the problem for as long as she could and then executed a lethal coup de grace. The Spencer family was outraged. Francis Shand Kidd believed the Queen had sat back until this late hour and then allowed them to be humiliated in court. The only word from the House of Windsor had been spoken behind palace doors, further straining the combustible relationship between the two families. Phew, that was a roller coaster. I have no words. Even though it meant Burrell getting vindicated, it somehow feels like the Queen once again walked away flexing and unscathed, and I totally feel for the Spencer family. So what did we learn here? The monarchy can still dazzle, with a jubilee that proved its emotional resonance hadn't faded, but just beneath that glitter lies something messier: favoritism, mismanagement, resentment, and the fear that secrets, once out, can't be taken back. Honestly, this book just keeps blowing my mind. The sheer level of detail Tina Brown gives us, it's like someone handed us the backstage pass to the royal show. And you know what strikes me the most? It's how much of the drama actually comes from the people behind the scenes, the servants, the aides, the secretaries, the folks who were supposed to keep things running quietly. It's almost Shakespearean. You had people who truly devoted their entire lives to the royals, like Talon and Griffin, but the moment they weren't needed anymore, it was like, thanks, goodbye. Brutal. And then you have people like Paul Burrell, who honestly started out loyal, but somewhere along the line, it twisted into something else, into this messy mix of love, possession, maybe even revenge. It's human, right? Messy, complicated, emotional. And it's crazy how the royal family, for all their wealth and power, still couldn't escape these basic human entanglements. Reading this, you realize the palace isn't just a fairy tale, it's a place full of small heartbreaks, awkward power plays, hurt feelings, and a lot of people just trying to survive in a system that doesn't always know how to value them back. It's fascinating, and honestly, kind of sad sometimes too. Stick around. The next episode will take us even deeper into this complicated world where image is everything, and real life never stops leaking through the cracks.